All right, guys, welcome back. This is episode 4, and today we're going to be looking at my Warlock builds. Um, Again, I have a video that goes over my basic buildcraft philosophy and some of the tools I use to make these builds happen, and how you can kind of make some of these on your own using the tools that I did to make some of these, whether they were based on someone else's design or a completely original idea. So when we look at my Warlock builds, there's a few different categories for them. There's generally speaking an ad clear setup, which Warlock is really good at, especially by just kind of throwing grenades and having a good time. There's a couple boss damage options, and there's every Warlock main's favorite words to hear. There's the well builds. Because everybody loves playing well on Warlock sorry, let me rephrase that. Everybody loves having a Warlock that plays well. Not everybody loves playing well, but here's a way to use well. This is going to be a way to use well in a way that's very fun and enjoyable and allows you to use it offensively instead of just defensively, and allows you to make some silly amounts of orbs with it. So, like most well builds, we're running Phoenix Protocol. Phoenix Protocol provides super energy on kills while standing in your well, and it'll give you up to half of it back. It's really nice. It's really easy. It lets you chain them together pretty solidly. So, just using that, and if you've watched my other videos, you can make a guess on what the main focus of this is going to be. It's going to be super regeneration, so that we can have that well as often as possible. It's outstanding for situations like Onslaught, where you can just kind of sit in a well, plink plonk a few enemies here and there, get your super back, and then have another well by the time your well is gone. So in order to make that happen, we're running Well of Radiance. You can run either melee of your choice. In this case, I have Celestial Fire because I was doing some stuff with it long distance when I actually put the build together. We're going to run a Rift just for the support of our teammates and being able to last a little longer, and a Fusion Grenade. You'll see most people, when they're running a well build, will try to run as much healing as possible, and they'll run a Healing Grenade, or they'll run Speaker Sight, that kind of stuff. It's very easy to find a Speaker Sight build out there. Speaker Sight kind of builds itself by just, you have a healing turret by throwing a healing grenade. This doesn't quite do that in the same way. In this case, we're going to have Hellion on, which will allow us to have a little solar buddy that will deal some free damage for us and help build up scorch stacks, which will help build us some ignitions. That's going to be important for the build. In addition, we have Touch of Flame, which makes that fusion grenade that we're carrying explode twice, which makes it put more scorch damage on things. I hope you're seeing a theme here. Because now you're going to notice Final Blows with a Solar Super causes targets to ignite and creates a fire sprite with the Ember of Combustion. Now, you might think about well and think, well, you're not getting kills with the super. But if you're using a solar weapon inside of a Well of Radiance, and you are the one who cast it, it will count as a solar kill and cause a free ignition. Which is one thing not a lot of people seem to have realized. And then following up with that, defeating multiple targets with ignitions will give us an orb. So we're going to be making a lot of ignitions, making a lot of orbs from those ignitions. Those ignitions are going to spread Scorch, which makes it easier to ignite more, and we're going to apply more Scorch stacks to targets. So this is very much a burn them all, call them over, we're done here type situation. This build is supposed to have... hold on, let me do this, and we'll fix it, because I ran out of space in my heavy slot. So I have Dragon's Breath. There we go, because that very much goes along with the ignition philosophy of this build. So we're running an incandescent primary of choice. Heal Clip Incandescent is a really good combo. It allows you to just heal yourself and your allies by getting a kill and reloading, and it lets you build Scorch stacks with some subclass verbs such as Incandescent. We're running a special weapon that's going to be a great option for major enemies, tormentors, anything like that, being able to get some precision damage out there. And Dragon's Breath does solid damage and also has some synergies with all of the scorch that we're doing. So it's once again, we're synergistic towards scorching and ignitions in order to make orbs to give us our super faster. Looking through it, power preservation, because those solar weapon kills while standing in a well count as super kills, they make an extra orb potentially using power preservation. We're gonna have a harmonic siphon so that we can make an orb. So now those kills count double for making orbs, which means it pretty much you make 2 orbs at a time with solar kills while in a well. Ashes to assets, because our grenades are going to be very powerful with the touch of flame aspect, so that we are going to be able to get more super energy from our grenade. We're running font of focus to... Actually, I don't need to run font of focus on this build. That is an artifact of a previous time. I don't need that anymore. In fact, I believe it's... Yeah, it's supposed to be the other one. It's supposed to be Font of Vigor. My apologies. With a harmonic loader and firepower. This gives us our melee faster. Those grenade kills give us super energy, and we can reload our solar weapons just a little bit better. I'm going to quickly save that adjustment that I made. I'm running the same kind of resistance I always am. It's not a big change. We're running Arc Void and Solar Resist. We adjust it as needed for content such as a GM, where it says something is going to hurt specifically more. Additionally, I'm running a Solar Weapon Surge, because who doesn't want a little more damage on your weapons that are going to be dealing the most damage? Recuperation gives us a little bit more healing when we pick up an orb, and Absolution gives us some ability cooldown. We're running Reaper so that after we use our class ability, we can get some more orbs from doing that. And Bomber gives us some more grenade energy, and Powerful Attraction allows us to pick up orbs from a little bit further away using our class ability. So the general loop is to get your super and get some kills in your super, and you'll notice you'll get that half from Phoenix Protocol very fast. And then you'll get the other half probably before your well goes away. If there's enough adds to defeat, you will get your super very fast, very often. As long as there's enemies to kill, you can have a well. It's very strong. I highly recommend a build similar to this. You could make some minor adjustments, as in change the super and the chest armor to either Dawnblade or Song of Flame, and wear Dawn Chorus, and have a very similar effect and be able to do damage. It's very much the same aspects, the same setup across the mods. You just got to switch that exotic and super over, and you can do some ridiculous things with those. They don't generate super quite as fast, but it does make those supers deal some great damage. So after our well build, we're going to look at our Young Ahamkara Spine build. I've got 2 of them here. They're very similar. One of them leans more into the subclass verbs, so that's what I'm going to go over. We're going to look at it. It's Voidwalker proper, and we're using Child of the Old Gods, which provides a weaken, and Feed the Void, which gives us Devour. If you watched my Titan video, you heard me talk about Devour and how powerful it is. It is one of the best ways to stay alive as long as you are defeating enemies. You can use Vortex or Cataclysm Nova Bomb with this. I prefer Cataclysm because you're more likely to get a little bit more of a weapon spread. I'm running Blink because I like Blink a lot. You can run a Glide if you so desire. Healing Rift is preferred over Empowering Rift, though that's up to you. And we're going to run Pocket Singularity and Vortex Grenade. Vortex Grenade is important because we're going to be using our grenade to weaken targets. So we've got the Child of the Old Gods to weaken targets, and our grenade to weaken targets. So we're going to have on Echo of Harvest. So when we defeat a weakened target, we're going to generate an Orb of Power and a Void Breach. Additionally, our Void abilities are going to cause targets to explode. It's mostly there to have that intellect boost, but you can also get some pretty interesting chains going with the combinations of instability, where defeating targets with grenades will give volatile rounds to void weapons. So now you can be exploding enemies with your abilities and exploding enemies through volatile rounds with your weapons proper. Very fun way to keep some ad clear expanding and spreading. I'm using a repulsor brace pulse rifle with this just because it gives me another way to stay alive. It's not necessary to run repulsor brace. it's a recommendation towards feeling good. Repulse for Brace, Frenzy, that kind of stuff just makes it feel really good. I have a special weapon that deals some great damage up close. It's not necessarily the most important thing to run, and avoid heavy weapon just because I wanted to be able to use the volatile. I probably would recommend against Deathbringer, and probably recommend just a regular old Void Rocket, either Tomorrow's Answer or the one from last season, Faithkeeper. Just because they'll be able to use some of those Void Verbs as well and make some interesting thing happen. But now we're going to look at Skull of Daira Hamkara, which is underutilized, and you could easily switch it out for a couple other options. Very easily, it could work with this build could work with Nezarec Sin as well. And this, what Skull of Daira Hamkara does is it gives you some damage resistance while casting Nova Bomb, which can be good, but it gives you more super energy from getting kills with that Nova Bomb, up to half. It's a little inconsistent on actually making that happen, though, unfortunately, because the Bloom kills don't count, which is one of those echoes we had. But while Devour is active, which is one of the important things that we're going to be trying to have active all the time, it gives us bonus super energy. So again, like my other ad clear builds, we're trying to get our super fast. We're trying to be really fast about getting our super so that we can use our super to use our super again. So we're going to have Font of Wisdom on, just like we have in a lot of our other builds where we're trying to get our super fast. Ashes to Assets, because our grenade is very powerful. It'll weaken enemies, it'll make an orb, it'll also give us a little bonus super energy. And because we're leaning so heavily on Void Weapons through our subclass, we're running Harmonic Siphon to make more orbs to be charged with armor charged. Once again, we're running Firepower and Font of Focus. We're making orbs with our grenades, and we are having our grenade a little bit more often. And we're running a loader because I like to have a loader. It just makes your primary weapon feel just a little bit better. I'm running the same things on my chest piece I always do, just some resists across the board. My pants are going to be very similar to some of my other builds where I'm running a surge that matches my heavy weapon, and recuperation, and an elemental charge. Which will allow us to stay armor charged. Time Dilation and Reaper allows us to make an orb quicker and keep our armor charges a little bit longer. It's not necessarily anything flashy or super special outside of, being a having Nova Bomb fairly often and fairly regularly, but it can be a consistent burst damage option towards ad clear. You have a major, just throw your super at it, because you know you're going to get one back really soon, really quickly. There's a couple other ways you could very easily build this. This is the one that I have that I've been using. One of the ones I've been using for Onslaught recently, because the area denial of the Child of the Old Gods and the Weakened Grenade allows for some great lane coverage. After that, we're going to look at my at another option for some ad clear. You're going to see it's going to be unable to equip some items because my inventory is a little bit full. So we're going to kind of talk about it and what it does, and the fact that I actually like this one a lot for a lot of GMs. This is a Chaos Reach Geomags build, very similar to the days of old when Geomags was very powerful. We're running Ball Lightning, and we're running Pulse Grenade. We've got an Arc Soul, which is some free damage and some free ways to just get a little more damage out on things, with Electrostatic Mind to be amplified anytime we collect an Ionic Trace, and we also generate more Ionic Traces. Ionic Traces are kind of the center of this build. You'll notice that right after this, we're going to look at the Geomags themselves, and it's going to show us why Ionic Traces are so important. So, defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace, which Electrostatic Mind also does. My Arc Grenade will jolt targets, which gives us a way to generate more Ionic Traces, and then some survivability with Spark of Resistance, just by having a little bit of resistance to incoming damage. And while amplified, which is one of the things that happens when we pick up an Ionic Trace, we will generate a few more orbs. Nice and easy. Basically, we're trying to get amplified, we're trying to create Ionic Traces. Because we're trying to make orbs, and we're trying to collect Ionic Traces because it will grant us energy for Chaos Reach. Additionally, our Chaos Reach dealing damage will be extended because of these Geomag stabilizers. And while it's not necessarily the best DPS option for, trying to burst down a high health boss, it's very good for clearing a room of enemies, or even if you've got like a really big champion or a major boss in an area, you can use this to really put the hurting on them through Chaos Reach. So, you saw that I had this primary on. It's got that volt shot. We want that volt shot or the jolting feedback in order to have some of that subclass synergy. Because defeating jolted enemies will give us ionic traces, and that's what we're really trying to do, is get ionic traces. Originally on this build, I had Wither Horde and a Bittersweet on. That was pretty much just so that I could have some boss damage options. The Wither Horde is some stable damage over time, and Bittersweet, the one that I had on, is Envious Arsenal Bait and Switch, which allows for some outstanding boss DPS as needed. Which means if I don't have my Chaos Reach, or if I don't think my Chaos Reach is going to be safe to use because of the cover system and the way that it is, I can pull out that heavy grenade launcher and throw some damage at the enemy. Once again, we're doing ad clear builds a little bit still, so we're running power preservation, we're running a harmonic siphon, and we're running font of wisdom on this helmet. We are keeping up with the tradition of trying to get that super fast and trying to make a lot of orbs with it. We're going to be using our grenade to do that a lot because the pulse grenade is very powerful. We're going to use firepower to make orbs with it, and font of focus to have it a little more often. Our chest piece is very much the same as far as resistances go. In this case, we aren't trying to sacrifice resistance for armor charges because we're going to have enough from what we're doing. We have Arc Weapon Surge, Recuperation, and Orbs of Restoration. If you can fit it with your stats, I would highly recommend swapping this Orbs of Restoration for an Elemental Charge, because you're going to be making so many Ionic Traces that you're going to be charged with light very often and very, very well through that, and because Ionic Traces will seek you out. We're going to run Time Dilation and Reaper just so that we can keep our fonts going a little bit longer and make a little bit extra orbs. This build pairs very well with any of those other super generation builds. It's pretty solid. It allows you to get a little bit more range and precision than, say, the Nova Bomb from Ahamkara's does, and it allows you to get some damage without necessarily needing to use heavy like that Well build does. That being said, one of the new hotnesses, especially because there's been some adjustments to roaming supers, has been Stormcaller recently. And I have a prismatic Stormcaller build that uses some very interesting techniques in order to do some ad clear in interesting ways. So we're going to look at our prismatic first. We're running Stormcaller. And you can tell we have Storm Dancer's Brace on. It's the chest piece, the exotic chest piece. But we've got Feed the Void, because Devour is one of the most powerful abilities in the game, and anytime you can get Devour, I highly recommend trying to have it. It's going to keep us alive whenever we're running it. And we've got Hellion, which is going to potentially give us some free Scorch damage towards some ignitions. You're also going to notice we have the Incinerator Snap, which will also be used to cause ignitions. We're running the Cold Snap Grenade to get some instant freezes. Most people will run that with something else, but I've got a interesting couple ways to use the Cold Snap Grenade, especially in tandem with the Hellion and Incinerator Snap, because Facet of Ruin, whenever you shatter a Stasis Crystal or Frozen Target, it will increase the size and damage of the burst. It will also make solar ignitions more powerful. So you can shatter with a Cold Snap Grenade by getting an ignition using your Hellion and Incinerator Snap and deal big damage against them, against your enemies. Additionally, we've got some of the same stuff I've been running on my prismatic builds, trying to deal more damage against things with darkness debuffs, freeze them and then hit them with the other abilities. We're running Fast to Purpose. It'll get us amplified. It's less important if you aren't able to get your stats where you're trying to get them by having Fast to Purpose. I could easily see switching that out for another option. Facet of Awakening and Facet of Sacrifice pretty much allow us to have just a little bit more all around go juice for being in Prismatic. So we're going to take a look at Storm Dancer's Brace because we're looking at the super using Storm Trance, which each target we defeat will increase the damage we deal with Storm Trance and will refund super energy up to half whenever Storm Trance ends. It's a very solid way to clear ads really quickly. It doesn't extend the duration of it, so you have to kind of think about when you're using it a little more than my Raid and Flux or my Doomfang build for my Hunter and Titan respectively. But it still allows you to get some solid damage and clear some ads fairly efficiently. We're going to take a look at our weapons here. I've got a Headstone weapon so that I can get more shatter damage using that Facet of Ruin. I'm going to run Ariana's Vow, or if you have it as an option, you could run Icebreaker, which pairs really well with that Stasis setup for getting some additional options for ignitions. Both Ariana's and Icebreaker can cause ignitions on the way that they work. I personally like Ariana's Vow because it's also anti-barrier. And then I've got a DPS heavy weapon here, the VS Chill Inhibitor. It's a solid option for some boss damage that I can pair very well with this. So I've basically got my workhorse, my major killing, or like my specific situation special weapon, and then I've got some boss damage right here. Once again, it's an ad clear build, so I'm going to be running Power Preservation with this build, and a Siphon that matches my primary weapon. In this case, it is Stasis because I'm really liking the synergies with Headstone on there. We're running a Loader for our primary. Firepower, I could easily switch that out for a hands-on and feel just as much benefit out of it, and it'd be pretty solid. On my chest piece, I've got the same resistances I've been running. And on my boots, I'm running Elemental Charge because I'm potentially making some of those Ionic Traces and getting them back, or anything along those lines. Just trying to have a little bit of armor charge. We're replenishing health and replenishing abilities from Orbs of Restoration. And additionally, we're running Utility Kickstart so we can have our Hellion more often. There's a couple other options we could do. We could lean more towards the font side of things and run for some weapon damage, but I've built this in an effort to try to create ignitions using that Hellion and the Incinerator Snap. But any form of Storm Dancer's Brace and Stormcaller can be a great option for ad clear, especially with Power Preservation for making a bunch of orbs. I think I have two more builds for us today. We're going to look at this build, which I specifically crafted for the second boss in Vesper, or for the boss in, the first boss in Vesper's Host, the Servitor boss. It could very easily transfer with some minor adjustments to some other boss encounters where you just need a lot of damage. So we're going to look at our subclass. We're running Song of Flame, which is basically just you get Radiant and you have abilities that do a lot of damage. We're running Icarus Dash to be synergistic with our exotic armor, Rain of Fire, which we will talk about in a minute. We've got Touch of Flame, which will make our grenade better, Fusion Grenade, and Incinerator Snap, because we're trying to make some ignitions happen. And very similar to some of my other solar builds, we're going to be getting Restoration on Fire Sprites, getting Radiant from our melees, as well as extending that with Empyrean and generating Fire Sprites by defeating Scorched enemies. Whether that's through ignitions or through weapon kills, we're going to generate some Fire Sprites. So those Fire Sprites is going to be our main source of healing, besides the orbs that we're going to generate along the way. So we're going to look at the Rain of Fire. Air Dodge, which is going to be Icarus Dash, reloads all of our weapons and improves airborne effectiveness of fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles. We don't care as much about the fusions and linear fusion rifles, or even the fact that it's going to make us radiant with those kills. It's a nice bonus it's not what we're focused on. We're focused on this air dodge reloads all of our weapons. What this would allow us to do is during a damage phase, we can throw some damage out there, like say fire a Wardcliff coil at the servitor boss, or where there's the 10 servitors, quickly dodge in the air, Icarus dash with rain of fire, and immediately have that Wardcliff coil reloaded and not have to worry about any reload times. So it allows us to pump damage out like with a lot of my Envious Arsenal DPS grenade launchers that I've been using. Additionally, we have a solar primary to kind of be our workhorse for making fire sprites and staying alive and just killing ads nice and quickly. You'll notice we have incandescent on it for the subclass synergy, just so that we can make our way through making fire sprites a little bit more often. And I've got a fusion rifle of choice in my kinetic slot, just so that I can potentially get some free radiant, not necessarily a necessity, but it's a potential option towards making some of that magic happen. This build can also be used as ad clear as well, and make a bunch of orbs for your allies, which is why I have power preservation on. If you were running something solo and you wanted to lean more into having that ammo, you could very easily swap this for a heavy ammo finder, and be able to keep your ammo going a little bit more often. We're running a harmonic siphon with our workhorse, so we can keep things going a little bit more, and font of wisdom to have our super more often. We are once again running a loader to keep our weapon loading, our workhorse, working on its horses. Font of focus and a font of vigor to keep our free scorch options outside of our primary weapon up and active, so that we can keep generating those fire sprites. My chest piece has the same kind of setup as always, where it's got arc, void, and solar resist, just to kind of stay alive. I've got a weapon surge that matches my heavy weapon, and I've got elemental charge because I'm going to be trying to make fire sprites, so I'm going to be trying to pick those up to keep my armor charge active. Additionally, recuperation allows us to use orbs that we generate to stay alive a little bit better. Time dilation keeps our weapon surge active longer, and Reaper lets us make more orbs after we place our rift. Alright, I have one more build. It's going to struggle to place because I don't remember my heavy for this build necessarily, but this one would work in its place. This build uses Prismatic for some boss damage, and you specifically is focused around the Spirit of Star Eater on the class item. I have Spirit of Osmiomancy as my kind of workhorse for the build, but you could use a lot of other options in that slot instead if you so desired. This build uses Nova Bomb, but could also be used with Needle Storm for getting boss damage using that Star Eater's buff. We keep Feed the Void active so that we can just kind of, have Devour and stay alive better and longer. And we're using Hellion to keep some Scorch active, and it's just kind of some free damage that we can have on the enemy. And we're running the Vortex Grenade because we are also running Fast of Dominance, which means our Vortex Grenade will weaken. So we're going to weaken with a Void Grenade and then theoretically throw a very strong super, whether that's Nova Bomb or Needle Storm, at him. And we're using Arcane Needle along the way for ad clear mostly to keep Feed the Void active and potentially have some Unravel active. For our weapons, we're pretty much running a workhorse for our primary and our special. Right now I've got this Judgment on and an Ariana's Vow because I really like how Ariana's Vow works for its ignitions, and it's pretty solid. And I've got a high DPS heavy weapon. In this case, it's one of those grenade launchers I've previously mentioned. Envious Arsenal, bait and switch. It's just a really good combo. I highly recommend trying to get one, whether it's on this grenade launcher or Bittersweet. They're both very powerful. I believe you can also get it on the Trials rocket, Tomorrow's Answer. So we had briefly talked about the class item and that we want Spirit of the Star Eater on it. I have Osmiomancy because it will make me get my grenade back faster, which means I can weaken enemies more often. We're running a primary Siphon, we're running ashes to assets so that we can make orbs and get our super faster with grenade kills. We're trying to make orbs with our grenade using firepower, which is why we want that grenade back a little more often. And we're trying to make our primary feel a bit better with a stasis loader. We're running emergency reinforcement, purely for the fact of it's some free damage resist, and you can't... I have struggled in the past with keeping Devour active during a boss fight proper, so this allows us to hold on to some armor charges to use them for damage resist if the boss decides to look at us and we don't have the ability to keep Devour active. Again, we also have a concussive dampener just for some regular damage resist. With Prismatic, it's very easy to activate and power Elemental Charge, so we've got that running to build our armor charges, and we have Absolution so that we can have more ability cooldown in general. Again, we have Reaper and Powerful Attraction, so we can make an orb after we use our class ability, and then pick them all up when we use the class ability, and we're going to get our grenade a little bit more often when we use our class ability via Bomber. So that really puts the build together that we're going to be just kind of ad clearing with our primary and our special in order to get to a damage phase where we can put out a lot of damage using the Spirit of Star Eater, which allows us to pick up extra orbs to gain bonus damage. That's a pretty basic setup of... I say basic. That's a majority of the builds that I use on my Warlock. I don't use my Warlock very often, but when I do, I like to be aware of what I'm running and how it's going to work out. So that's pretty much how my Warlock runs. Thank you all for watching.